XP for you! It is the 3rd episode! Whee! And now, from video games to love to anime. I think that's a good one to bring up. I mean, of course everyone's gonna be curious. What is my preference? Slice of life. The horror. The girl. The ecchi. The school days. But I mean, anime has a lot to be discussed. I mean, you can take a lot from Naruto, you could take a lot from Inuyasha, you could take a lot from, Silent Voice. Oh, you could take a lot from that. If I can remember some of these other animes that I've seen, these OVAs and one-shot kind of concepts, there's going to be a whole lot we're going to be able to dive into, and I will need to find a way to, well, I mean, if we're not going to limit it, I will just have this as a excessively long podcast, which, be prepared. Okay. The life, the journey, and the adventure of me, SelphyClark, and how I emerged into the anime scene. And why am I back? Why am I here? What drives, what motivates, what gives me the feels when I watch the anime? Well, anime. The wonders, the joy, the thing that had been bashed as a cartoon, or, oh, do you like Avatar, or do you just like those weird hentais? It's very funny living quite in the era from where it was bagged on, it was bashed, it was bullied for, to suddenly it is so popular now that everyone will talk about it and have enjoyment and see the delight. It's just to have been someone who got little teased and made fun of anime, and now it's come into full swing of more people understand why we even enjoyed it in the first place. And my position on that, I'm grateful more people love anime now. I'm so happy it is more in the mainstream. There's more people who can relate to it, different media that comes out of it, more games, more literature, more fan fiction, more cosplay ideas. It's appreciated. But then there's the flip side where people just don't understand. Don't spoil things. Don't. Like, someone's reading the manga, maybe they're not watching the anime, or maybe they're reading the light novel, or playing the visual novel of this media. Not everyone's gonna be on the same one track. That's the one thing about the whole network of anime, the whole layers between it of one story, like Attack on Titans. My god, you could not go on Twitter for a bit without being barraged with just suddenly ba 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 ba. Pretty much, if you watch Star Wars, when the Kylo Ren part came through, a lot of people were being spoiled on something that wasn't in the original material, but then the movie company, the Disney people, decided to switch it, and you're like, oh, well, okay. But again, things had to change because real life actress died. That devastated, but things were happening and things had to change. Not appreciated from fan view, but you gotta work with what you have. But that's just a way to demonstrate what's happening, because now, compared to when it was just Facebook or community forums when anime was coming out, because I mean, this is the era from the 80s, 90s into the 2000s, and now we have all these other social media platforms where you can just instantly release your thoughts about what happened in said episode or what you think, and then show pictures and like, wait, give me a moment to let me see the material before you just surprise me with spoilers. But that's just to go on that little tangent. But anime as a whole, it's definitely up and coming. It's made its scene, it's made its popularity, and I mean, I really think it's here to stay. It potentially is going to transform, maybe go by a different title in due time. Who Who knows? But it's no longer just the otaku scene. It's no longer the neats. It's no longer the weirdo, the creep kind of stereotype that you see. It's your everyday person who has a phone who might just put in an episode of My Dress Up Darling or want to do a marathon on Discord for Gundam or something. There's a variety out there now. And, I'm really trying to remember what even was my first anime. Because the thing is, I grew up right on the age of technology changing. I mean, for one point, we did have a rotary dial phone, house phone, but then we did have a digital, non-connected landline, or that we did incorporate Bluetooth at some point in my home. I mean, we had the retro colored TV that weighed over 100 pounds, okay? So, if what I can remember, I definitely know, obviously, we're going to say it, Card Capture Sakura, Sailor Moon, Hamtaro. I'm pretty sure Shin-chan is in there because there was late nights of me not supposed to be up watching Adult Swim, but obviously me wanting to see the Inuyasha movie for the third time. It would replay at like 3 a.m. So there I was watching all these other animations being done. Aha, that's what it was. Slayers, the Saint Tail as well. Well, Slayers next. I should rephrase that because that came out 1996. So at that time, I would have only seen like repeats coming through because I wasn't watching it quite then because brain was not computing quite yet. No, Kadocha. Yeah, that one with the little bats and the whole childhood actress and then trying to find her new family. Gosh, that was such a good series to grow up with. I mean, I already mentioned Shin-chan. Oh, right, because in the same era with Inuyasha, Rurouni Kenshin, of course, and obviously we're gonna throw in Dragon Ball because the episodes popped up, but did I watch it through and through? No. I definitely watched Detective Conan when I could watch the episodes together because it's a big plot. I'm curious by detective work and unraveling the mysteries. But really, these are things I can remember that were being played on the television that we could watch. I definitely know beyond the age of 5. Because, I mean, definitely before that, we were definitely watching PBS, History Channel, a select amount of movies that our parents would watch with us. I mean, Barbie, Polly Pockets, the Bratz, definitely had that doll era, but still, it was mainly ways that me and my sister could connect, but once our friends introduced us to Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, pretty much that was it. Then we suddenly realized there was cartoons but that were better than just the regular cartoons. That we would run home to watch an episode of Sailor Moon because we were curious about the overarching plot. It wasn't just an episode I would catch and then I would be like, okay, we saw what happened. But no, anime, even if we couldn't realize it then, there was a big story we wanted to keep up with. Because, I mean, me and my sis, we were book readers. We were the kids who come home with our library books checked out to the limit. So, I mean, besides going outside and playing with our friends and doing stuff, then we discovered we could watch these series together and start to have that middle school kind of crush on fictional characters. We aged out of elementary from the stuff that was kind of presented to us by our parents and regulated, and then middle school it really opened up for, here you can do all this, you have more free range. Of course there was limitations on like some of the material, and they would make sure we weren't chatting with weird people, but again, we got clever. We snuck around a bit, because like my last episode, I did mention I got computer viruses on the computer, okay? I was on sites I was not supposed to be perusing. And if we're really gonna be honest, definitely have some haunting memories of clicking on some videos thinking it was an anime episode, and no, it turned out to be the edgy kind. On full blast sound with everything uncensored. You're like, dear God, I'm a child. I don't need to see this. Those are the times. Taking that risk with LimeWire. All the gamble down. But still, it gave me a way to figure out how to safely peruse the internet without getting more viruses. So it taught me a very good lesson. So, gotta hand it to that. But really, to go over it, we kind of had anime stumbled upon. Neither our parents had a interest in it or present it to us as a option or as something they've already treasured. It was something that we ourselves discovered merely by a show of recommendations of shows that would pop up and what caught our eye. 'Cause I mean, again, we were more wordy. We wanted something that caught our attention and kept up. I mean, later in life, we were kids who watched series together with our parents as something that we would do after dinner. We enjoyed keeping up with events that were going on for an overarching plot. But, I mean, subtitles, that was something we've already were being introduced to with many different foreign films, as one of our parents is Finnish born, so there would be a lot of crime dramas or oh my gosh, I mean, I'm talking about all these nitty-gritty, hard-hitting cases, but of course, it's obvious how anime came into my life. Moomin, which is spelled M-O-O-M-I-N. Moomin Valley. That must be it. That is the key to how I transitioned from a kid who moved into the American culture to find anime because of my parent of Finnish descent. Moomin Valley by... Essentially, it's classified as a cartoon, but it is an animation still. And a lot of people still question it today of like, oh, is it Japanese or is it Finnish? Because it has been redone and put in a lot of Japanese culture because they love the story, the style of it. It's this essentially Harvest Moon-esque, Stardew Valley-esque world that's a vast valley, rich and lush and green with multiple different characters like Animal Crossing and essentially, but it has its own kind of story it wants to tell. These characters have their different appearances that can both be ambiguous or they can be labeled a certain way because some are humanoid, some are very anthropomorphic. My gosh, here I'm walking around thinking about the times I saw it on television, but no, it's because of Moomin that I went into anime, of course. And, I mean, we could talk about Moomin because Moomin has been around for so long. I mean, you can see several of these episodes online, thankfully, because again, it's been something that's gone around 1940s, essentially, when the first set of comics, this first set of stories came out. And of course, it did get more popularized because then there is a Swedish adaptation they made where they think it went by like Moomin Troll, a different set of title, because again, translating Finnish to Swedish, it's gonna change a little bit, but especially it caught on because a Japanese company made its own animation to it, which highlighted. So again, it did span into anime because then a Japanese studio had created a version to it. But still, the Finnish version, the Swedish version, the Japanese version, they all have loving parts of the series put into them. But of course, the comic is the canonical true material that the author put all the time and effort into creating this world, these stories. I mean, hell, I'm still finding research specific to Moomin Valley about verbal abuse, neglect, how to fight climate change, the differences in how we interact interpersonally, LGBTQ+, because the different characters can be ambiguous on their representation of real life characters. I mean, I still remember playing the little PC Moomin game. Oh my god. It just enraptured my world, having this educational, child, wondrous, hopeful story set to see over the years. And that really gave me a gateway, the inspiration, the desire to continue seeking out cartoons, animations, fictional, anthropomorphic characters that can dive deep into a conversation, difficult struggles. I mean, that makes sense why I went from a whole world of Moomin Valley to entering into anime like Inuyasha, where you're fighting for saving the feudal era, even though most of the time it was ridiculous shenanigans. Bleach, with just one man and his gang of friends wanting to save this other world. What else we got? I mean, and then we got Wedding Peach with magical girls in wedding dresses. It takes its turns here and there, but then you got, what is it? So many animes that deal with mother issues, father issues. I mean, even the more newish and more expansive kind of animes that deal with older adults, where they're not college bound, or if they're not high school, they're actually like mid-30s, 40s, where they deal with their own lives and what else they do with their time besides having a job and career. It's pretty significant talking about the average office worker rather than the high school student just starting school. It deals with a whole different level of petty drama, what you have to realize about your ongoing daily life compared to just having exams each week. Hell, I mean, this is just in the anime world. I mean, we have the entire collection of movies that have been animated fully. I mean, Ghost in the Shell is a very hot topic, given the fact of people are still afraid technology is going to take over, and then there's people who are afraid that humans are going to become obsolete. There's both sides of the extreme, while this anime movie essentially explained how a synthesis needs to occur for life to continue, both beneficial and fruitful for the next future in order for our evolution to continue. It's wild, because, I mean, it's just bits and pieces of symbolism that happens throughout the movie that really give you this sense of rising above what you are now, the entire creation and destruction and rebirth that happens as you age and as time goes on, compared to a simple anime slice of life like Lucky Star, where it's multiple different character development in essentially a bubble, because they are in school. It never shows their life younger, never shows the life older. Those kind of materials you have to find in fan fiction. But the show itself, the manga itself, the light novel, is this warm and soft adventure that you get to explore an interpersonal setting rather than a crisis at hand of humans and their technology compared to like Ghost in the Shell. Because, I mean, then we go to One Piece with that anime. I'm not even finished. I'm not even close to catching up, and there's so much stuff I'm confused. Some things have not been spoiled on. And just the wonder of how this story has progressed, and that there's a divide even in the fandom of people who actually understand that at the heart of it, One Piece is friends, their own individual goals, overthrowing governmental powers who are corrupt, the different horrors that happen as a hierarchy of power comes into play and how you have to dismantle them, both in a way that's very physical and forceful, or by simply having a moral stance you will not back down on. Because the very fact of, if you've seen Water 7, that very basis, one of the characters during that arc has such an ingrained sense of not existing anymore, and that they were willing to just disappear for the sake of that glimmer of happiness they had with the Straw Hat crew. But I mean, the Straw Hat crew with this character, they were determined to destroy the world government just to see them continue to have that happiness rather than to give it up. That huge, and that's not even the biggest, like, deepest part of the show. It's just, it had so many different little conflicts of friendship, of when things are meant to end their existence, and even big part of throwing the government. Oh, it's just so exciting, that part, because especially Soga King, you gotta appreciate the duality of Usopp. I'm just so happy I finally continued watching One Piece. There was, like, how are we even going to explain this, because since I just jumped in, but there's a lot you can discuss about One Piece just in itself, and then any show that's similar or goes in the same shonen aspects or adventure or long journey. But just personally me, One Piece was something that always was exciting because pirates in anime, and that they gave them zany, wacky powers, it looked fun, it looked hella great. And yeah, sure, for some might be like, oh no, the proportions of the bodies are crazy, but nothing in that world is, like, defied by normal physics. They eat freaking fruit to become powerful and turn into, like, a giraffe, okay? I understand my brain, it's wacky, so nothing has to be truly real. But just, One Piece is going on for so long, and it was so different in its humor as well compared to when I was watching Naruto as a kid. Naruto had some funny stuff, but it was really slapstick gag humor, while then One Piece had punny humor. It had humor that was very specific to Japanese language. It just felt more of real life culture was added to it rather than this fantasy ninja world. It just, you got a different kind of laugh from it. Because then One Piece would go around and flip it and then make you cry in agony at different points of the story. That's the crazy part. Naruto didn't really have those agonizing, sad parts that messed with you to the soul. Yes, characters died, but that's well-placed, normal sadness. One Piece gave you agonizing emotions for guilt, for shame, for betrayal. It just added a layer to the emotional complexity it gave to you. I mean, Alabaster going and trying to help this princess in her civilization, in her kingdom, you get more than just a death sadness. You have agony for her people, for the pride of governing over them, for the lies that are being told. It basically, it stimmed the brain in a way that kept me going, compared to Naruto, where it's like, you're gonna be frustrated for a day or two that someone dies, and you're like, why? Why? And yes, of course, we're gonna realize, because then, but what about Naruto and being an abandoned, neglect, the child stuff and all that? Yes, but it intentionally made the scenes more sad. It didn't use the bright colors, it muted the scene, it made it grayed out, it played the sad classic music. And obviously, this is just where I was getting what stimulation for my mental emotions. Naruto was for the action adventure and for the gag humor. I wasn't looking to cry in the series. I was looking to see demons and all these badass fights. But then I go and play One Piece, and I want to see a lifelong journey being explained in a heart-filled journey, and then laugh about some silly dance afterwards. You see, each of them have their preference on what I want to watch it for. But everyone's gonna be different. I'm just personally a heavy One Piece fan, obviously. But I still watched Naruto through and through. I enjoyed it. Maybe because there were so many fillers that threw me off from keeping sad, would distract me from that. And even plus, I have to realize the timeline of when I was watching Naruto through and through compared to One Piece. Because One Piece, I kept dropping back on and off in my youth of like child 10 years old. While Naruto, I would watch straight through into my teenagehood. But One Piece, I have continuously on, off, and now I'm consecutively watching it into my 20s. Now, how I think and what I've gone through in life, it connects with me in a different way compared to child me connecting with Naruto. The level of responsibility or how many spoons I have to give out for my mental energy is very different. Maybe if I had watched One Piece when I was younger, it wouldn't have hit as much, but it does now because all the implications and the story and the lore in the background affect my emotions more compared to Naruto, when I could be distracted by the opening and ending music compared to a tragic death. It's very wild re-watching some of these episodes and understanding something in a different way. I mean, let's see. Like when I first read Yumi Nikki, or not Yumi Nikki, I mean Mira Nikki, the cell phone survival game with Yuki and pink-haired girl. I cannot remember, but she usually has an axe on her. That series, from the time I actually read it to the time I actually watched the anime, did feel different. For one, canon material, I was hyper-focused on it, but that's because I had the time to. But then by the time the anime came out, I had, I guess, been at that point where I was about to drop off the train of excitement for it, or hype. So then it kind of lost the edge. It lost the impact that it had in the anime. Like at the end, when you realize all the secrets. Because in the manga, you're like, every time a chapter released, it was just crumbs you were waiting for, compared to the anime when it just came out super quickly. Yeah, that's another thing I have to realize. Besides the time I would consume this material as a child or as an adult, and then even how long did I have to wait to finish the material, because again, so many of these series now are readily available and not searching through YouTube for part 1, part 2, part 3. There's that whole attention span and even that whole graph chart where it'll show for the anticipation for something to receiving the goal to having that reward, and then what then? It kind of sloped back down to a plateau, essentially, for the materials and stuff I was able to quickly watch compared to the ones that it took years to catch up, like One Piece. This is something I myself am chugging along, completing on my own way, compared to a lot of the other animes in my youth, where I had several of my friends watching at the same time, so we were literally competing against each other for who would collect the amount of material between each other. Wow, it's very strange. The amount of shows and manga and manhwa that I have consumed simply by peer pressure or just not wanting to be spoiled, and then I didn't get to absorb the full story as much compared to now. I might watch 1 or 2 episodes in one sitting, and that holds my heart, holds my attention a lot more. Well, it's even the fact of my time is limited. I can't just sit here and watch the entire Neon Genesis Evangelion like I did when I started college. To sit there for the entirety of the entire night to watch 27 episodes because I knew I wanted this knowledge now. But now, there's no physical way I could just marathon that many episodes without spiraling into the emotion of just 2 to 4 episodes of material. It could be more sensitive, or it could be my appreciation for each part of the story. It's something in that fashion. Now, besides spiraling into that conversation, how else to discuss anime, the wonders and how I discovered it? Because, sure, there is a lot of shows in the past that maybe I'm not proud of watching, or I really shouldn't recommend you to watch, because, remember, from what I've just talked about before, I have perused some of the darker parts of the internet, and I have satiated that impulsive thought of just click the link, see what this is, and then I'm like, why in the world did I need to know someone animated that? Why? We should probably, if we do talk about hentai and some of the more erotic or ecchi or dangerous material that is animated online, that should be an entirely separate episode. Because this is on the side of anime that you have a story, you have a goofy plot, you have amazing voice actors, or a soundtrack that transcends time and space. These parts of anime should be discussed first before we get into the more degent side of it. Because, the very fact that we have animations that are one-shots, OVAs, or just simply storyboards that are left up to interpretation, or the very small series that screamed out into the dark, such as any of these anime series that, Oron, Special A, I believe it is, pretty much the little romantic or adventure series that only got 1 season, 12 episodes, to an entire manga that could have been 20 to 40 volumes long, and a huge chunk of the actual heavy plot is missing. Because for a fact of it didn't do well on sales records or TV records, so we don't get to see it in person. For a long time, Fruits Basket was in the same dilemma. Huge, successful manga that's known from east to west. And it still led into this dilemma of it cliffhanging the anime on a very pivotal point in the story that couldn't really be said as a true end or completion or finish to the story, but the manga was ongoing, so they couldn't end the story quite then. But little did we know, right in the middle of COVID times, that they would let us know they were revamping the story, not picking it up for where it left off, but entirely recreating the story and going to finish it from start to finish. Which most a little scared, because they grew up with certain voice actors that they knew and loved, that they felt matched the characters, and there was definitely a lot of people who were concerned, because when they first showed Kyo Soma, they were like, who is that? Because honestly, his hair, darker, different hairstyle, his face structure, because the animation studio and the animation times had dramatically changed to realistically, but special twinkly light to add to the Bishonen look of these characters compared to their counterparts who were a little bit more blocky or 90s-esque. Kind of that 80s vibe of hand-drawn, dark-colored settings compared to the light, fluffy, almost airy marshmallow look that it has now, which for both series works. It's just funny that one is its predecessor and the other is the completed part. I guess it's even just weird because we were expecting to see certain imagery, certain characters designed in a way, and we had to kind of work with the new look to them. But they still kept their personality, so I have to say, they did a bang-up job. Since we're on the subject of Fruits Basket, the shoujo manga series, the slice of life, or the tragedy, the drama, and the interpersonal and family issues that come up in a lot of series. They do show up in shonen as well. It's just shoujo does give it a bit more time and air and space to talk about it. Now, obviously, I already mentioned about Sailor Moon because, that was heavily a series that was readily available to watch, and it was being hyped because, magical girls who could blast literal fire or water out their hands, and beings from the moon. It was pretty cool as a kid to be introduced to that as an anime. And we got introduced to Moomin, which was entirely Finnish cartoon animation, but then coming into Japanese animations, the difference in how the story was being told, especially since there's layers besides just the music, the voice actors, the plot, but even because multimedia, there was video games, there was comics, there was manga, there was toys, there was light novels, little gacha toys with sounds, wands you could dress up as the character, do cosplay. It became pretty much an essential part of your personality if you got into any part of anime, and suddenly you had this wide a variety of different media or even content you could enjoy from the same series, which is kind of crazy because then Pokemon has, I don't even know how much stuff Pokemon has. Like, good gosh, from just the cosplay alone, each of the Pokemon, their different lore, the different styles you can put them into. Hell, even when you find people who can realistically draw them, it is amazing. I think that's like the biggest part of going into anime and then realizing, looking back on it, that's why it drawed me in as well, besides just being an interesting story, colorful, creative, vast plot, that there was so much to do with it. Look at the Hamtaro series. That has a huge amount of video games being sold on different platforms, different neandroids, like the little movable figures you can animate or just place like a little collection set. Then there's the music. My gosh, all these little series. I mean, hell, even the one Inuyasha. There's a freaking card game for Inuyasha that I have 3 of them still. I mean, I never got to officially play it, but still. From just a TV series to a manga to a freaking card game you could battle your friends against. What else? I mean, hell, Neon Genesis. They have freaking headphones. Replicas of the pods. I mean, I do know there is a really, really cool one-piece snuggly outfit. I forget, there's an official term for it. But like pajama set you could wear and you would look like the purple one. I cannot remember, but that's Shinji's. Ava. My brain is disappearing on me for a moment, but I'm just realizing the amount of both, in part, commercialism, capitalism, products that appreciate or even rip off the series as well, because then we have to talk about the whole fact of there is hardworking, creative people who make merchandise, their time and effort because they love the series, and then the series goes around and then starts suing them, and then stealing their designs, which is so maddening. Like, some of these companies don't understand how to actually make a cool-ass t-shirt for their series that people would actually want to wear. There's a sense of style you need to add to clothing if you want people to represent it. Because especially, 10 years ago, trying to wear an anime shirt of any kind, it was pretty much, you just put a screen print of the main character on a black shirt or a red shirt or orange shirt, and that was it. It didn't have the cool symbols or the designs or the kanji on it, like all the stuff I'm getting now. Like, it's crazy. There's tie-dye shirts now that are crop tops and tied and have all these extra little beading on it. I'm like, damn. This is why it's gotten so popular, because people realize when you sell merchandise that you love of a series, you add the little flares, the textures, the designs that make sense. Not just slap it on something and expect someone to buy it. Because, like, I'm going back on it, like the different types of media, like Naruto. They had a whole bunch of fighting games for Naruto. And it was frustrating that it was strictly battle royale or just an Olympic championship who sees who can button mash the best. But then they added plot into the games. That made it much more willing to buy it and play it. Because, you can fight your friends only so many times with Naruto's freaking shadow clone jutsu before you're like, okay, I need to switch it up. There's only so many characters I can work with. Plus, other problem, if your friend wasn't caught up with the series, you wouldn't want to show them certain characters because then they would miss out on seeing some awesome fight sequences too. Yes, this is a little bit of a tangent on merchandise and the different media. Hell, Japan has a whole series of rhythm games, the crayon games, and even, something like similar to pinball. I know there's some pinball ones that have, like, Power Ranger and such, but it's been a while, so they might not even exist anymore. I don't really have any more of my merch from anime, from anything. Because sadly, in the past, I did sell a bunch of my stuff, thinking I needed to save in order to get through college, but I really could have kept quite a few of them. I sold all of my plushies. I sold most of the Pokemon cards that were in good condition. At this point, really, I only have like one Saitama Neandroid that I was able to save. I have a few little keychains that make noises when you click them, such as... But I mean, that's not from any anime, it's just a gashapon, the whole put a coin in and you try to see what you win from it. It was a pretty cool find through eBay, but I could never find the final one for the tsundere one. I'm mad because it was such a nice blue. I mean, maybe I could find it in the future, but at this point it might just be one of those little trinket things that have disappeared with time. So sad. Oh, but God. Oh my God, freak, the whole poster industry too, shit. Just thinking about that has been upgraded heavily in the past few years because more, print shops have existed now that will do all these elaborate designs, plus they can get away with more copyright material. Because, I mean, people have been a little crazy about how stickler they are about stuff when people want to just express themselves, and there's artists who are able to design pretty badass looking designs that add a flavor to it that companies kind of forget to add to their stuff. Because, I mean, you can make Attack on Titan look cute and fluffy, but people know that's just a ploy, like, haha, you're trying to make me be fooled and deceived. And it's just nice to have something that offsets the dark part of the series. Besides the buying stuff that you can have, I mean, well, a part of that, conventions, I've not had a truly fulfilling or full experience of the full anime convention, sadly. Which, I mean, it would be nice to participate and have the full kit and caboodle of it. I just know in the past, the times I was either allowed or able to go to conventions, one, money was a huge factor, and two, I didn't have enough time to spend the entire weekend. And then COVID happened, so that brought out a unsightly side of the anime community. So, anime conventions. To what I know and see and hear about, it's an exciting time you can get together and put together your best and most funky ideas of cosplay or see other people's renditions, how they interpret it and how they put it together. You're able to run around and see different artists' collections, you can dance, you can do goofy things. And it's funny because what was acceptable or even what was the main trends at anime conventions since I last went have definitely changed. Like, for one, you're not gonna see the yaoi paddles everywhere. That has definitely disappeared. And even glomping, caramel dancing. And especially just people have realized that they need to be respectful and courteous about people's time and energy around each other. And even there's more different types of cosplays that can be put together, that you can form different fusions, or you can have suddenly parallel universes. And I love that it's expanding more and more into wackiness that occurs at an event that you don't know who's arriving besides who's on the panels. Everything else is timing, and if you arrive and you're able to go to the rave, see the anime adaptations or the dubs that they do, if they're gonna have chess or if they're gonna have a maid cafe. And it'd be fun to go out of the city I'm in and go to an entirely separate location for the convention. I mean, different weather, different types of people you might never meet in person. It's a wondrous thing that anime conventions can evolve into a lively space that's well accepted more now that they can actually reserve an entire hotel and have everyone come through and just make memories. But again, this is all that I've seen and heard about, so I'm not well versed in how the timing goes down for conventions, but still, it would be a nice thing to drop back into. I mean, next year, that would be a good start to have. Yeah, so running off on anime conventions and merchandise, but I mean, it's a part of anime now because more people are willing to make this product and make it a good product too, compared to a few years ago. I mean, sure, there is still shoddy quality being made that is being pushed out for just a cash grab, which is very frustrating. Like, I mean, Hot Topic, just to say, that company still pushes out stuff that is not the best quality, or it's ripping off other ideas, so I'm like, that's not a good thing. Why are we stumbling on our words all of a sudden? I mean, we can get into this conversation. Fan service. Ecchi. All of that. I mean, to an extent, because the rest of it would be a conversation, an entirely other section of 18 plus material. But I'm just talking about high school D&D. You know, Food Wars, of course, Food Wars is going in here. I mean, you've seen how much an ecstasy these people get trying a piece of food. But I mean, yes, food can be good, but on that level in public? And like No Game, No Life, that kind of goes into the same era of ecchi. Kill la Kill, that's another one. High School of the Dead, of course, but I mean, in part, High School of the Dead is ecchi, but another part, it's a badass zombie anime. Like, it would be fun if that was a video game. Come on! What else is there? Prison! Oh my gosh, Prison School. If you've never seen Prison School, just know, latex suit. Just to give you that little tidbit. Oh. What else is there? Oh my gosh, what is it? There was the other one. It was a recent series where they're literally in a world where, like, perverts, all that ecchi and everything is outlawed. Morality, something. What is it? Can't remember. Anyways. Oh my god, how did I skip over it? Monster Musume. Oh my gosh, I loved that series when it came out. I had such a blast because, honestly, Monster Musume in a ecchi harem series, it made sense. It followed its stereotypes and broke free from stupid plot points and made something excellent to read and see. Because honestly, like, there's so many monster-type girls you wanted to explore their characters. Just for the girls themselves. It was the whole reason the series continued. I mean, have you ever seen Arachnia with legs to kill? Come on. Oh god, I forgot about that. That was so good. Oh my gosh. Eromanga Sensei. I mean, I've never finished it because then there was the whole thing of step siblings, but I don't know if they were actually step siblings because then there's the whole thing of how is my little sister this cute, which delved into that same taboo. I'm like, I don't want to really go into that for my ecchi anime, so I just scoot along. Oh my god! Of course, Rosario Vampire. Oh my god, 2008. Oh man, that was quite the year for just panty shots. Panty shots, panty shots, panty shots. My goodness. If the author did already like beauties, I would assume they are a fan. My gosh. that was definitely one that introduced me to that. No. One other. There is one other from that same era. But it was a more boobily-ish anime. To Love Rue. Oh my gosh. Rito, that little timid little dude. My gosh, I forgot about that series with the era when pink-haired girls were not the crazy one, but they were just bubbly happy and they weren't secretly a yandere time. I forgot. Yes, of course. Oh, wait. No, well, yeah, it does go into the whole taboo era too, because then the Kiss Sis series, well done though, animation great, but still with the whole sibling relationship and like, nah, foo. I think that's where I stand on the information that I have for those, right? I mean, technically, Elfenlied and Chobits could go into that too, but they deal with a whole other fact of a sentient being who's different from normal humans, and yes, they have some fan service in there, so it can't entirely be an ecchi anime, but there's fan service on the side, which you didn't really need, but I guess they just want you to know that the main protagonist has blood running through their veins? if that's what they're explaining to. Wait, hold on. Love Hina and Girls Bravo. Those are the ones. See, I keep reliving the experience of seeing this stuff for the first time, because a lot of this was animes that were just randomly discovered. But yes, Love Hina, I mean, it is a rom-com, love story, harem, but it has a main love interest, but there's still ecchi in there. And Girls Bravo, I mean, the physics of literally every girl character in that series, boobily walking in, okay? Oh, just so I can remember everything the top of my head. And that's just me refreshing my brain, because I've seen a change in how animation has gone about, how much is needed, why some stuff is cut, why people in the fandom get mad, they make adaptations. I mean, I know recently My Hero Academia had some, was it flashback? What is the word? Basically, slapback? I don't know the phrase, but anyways, they were making the realization that from the manga itself, how some of the girl characters were suddenly shrunk down when they're put in their anime form, which was a little obnoxious, because it was like, people like thighs, a little jiggle, and like they're growing kids, they should have a bit more on them, if anything. So it's just weird that the canon material then, they were shrunk down a little, so that made a big sense of problems. And I know there were some issues, or maybe there was just some laughs that happened with the swimsuit episode, because they were all in normal attire and not being like zoomed in on, which was appreciated that they weren't creeping on them. Because I get it, outfits and showing off certain characters, but still, we have to realize there's a limit to how much fan service you should be doing for one character to another. I mean, it makes sense that Miss Midnight in My Hero has fan service, because literally her character is like the essence of that. Mount Lady, she gets a little bit there, but it's more so they show off her lazy side, which is a good thing to show about superheroes and how they're cashed in, but then they don't have to be good people per se, technically. But move back from that. Fan service, I mean, ecchi, hentai, harems, the whole deal of that side of anime. Sure, like, you have series where there's romantic tension. But then you have shows like Girls Bravo where it had so much boobins, but then it was just normal. Like, pretty much because the whole space planet was just ladies, so everyone was fine with titties everywhere. But then they got to Earth and everyone was like, whoa! Flipping out about it. So then that's another point of, yes, the series is in the lens of for men, but then the very fact of the characters themselves don't see it as a problem. So there's 2 points on that, where you have the Earth having an issue with something that's totally normal, and so they're going to view it sexually rather than just, this is a human body. And even, it's appreciated that the main character, sadly, the main character is, like, literally medically scared of women, so he doesn't have any reason to be forward or bold or perverted in any way, but still, he does find love with the main girl. As a whole, when you look at Girls Bravo, it starts off as a series where this guy has had literal trauma, verbal abuse in his life. Even to his best friend, who is a girl that sticks by his side, is still very classic 90s, 80s tsundere who can't just communicate with her words and is always too brash, but obviously trying to protect him, but doesn't understand she needs to use the noggin instead of the boobly wooglies that sway everywhere. And it is a little frustrating in the middle of the story that obviously she misses out confessing her feelings, but obviously they wouldn't work out in the end unless they actually went to couples therapy to talk on her aggression level and her lacking of verbal communication and his lack of standing up for himself and putting boundaries on those violent actions she's done. Just to mention that, but literally, the main character, he's dealt with so much hate by women for just simply him existing and not looking like a Giga Chad. But he is a Giga Chad with his heart. Because the dude who looks like the Giga Chad in the series, who has a mansion and freaking ex-military maids and butlers, he's a total jackass for most of the series until he finally understands money ain't buying you happiness, because he wants to act shitty with it. He could just act good with it, but he still shows up to be the classic extremist pervert in the series, which, crazy enough, then when he actually reveals some kind of personality, him and the childhood best friend who's tsundere actually makes sense in the long run if they would become a couple, which is wild. But when you watch the episode when she's fighting with her hands with puppets, you see that little nugget of connection, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Am I actually cheering for this, I honestly, D-rated Sanji character? Because I don't even know if the dude can cook. At least Sanji can cook you a master buffet. Anyways, we're just gonna go on a fucking tangent of the blonde-haired perverts in anime series at some point. Good gosh! They love making blonde-haired dudes the absolute beasts. No chill. Always barrel for the pussy. Okay. From there, Girls Bravo, obviously, it makes light of trauma. Literally, he breaks out in hives when he's in contact with someone of the opposite sex, besides the main heroine, who's the pink-haired cutie, which is very fun because her outfit when she arrives is totally in black. It's form-fitting, but it still presents her to be adorable rather than sexy, so that's appreciated, even though they do make her character very ditzy, bubbly, naive, pretty much the whole weird stereotype of Japanese hot body, but child mind. So like, not really vibing with this until I learn more about the character and understand that they're actually of age and they can think more than just, look at me, I'm so cute. But I mean, that's just on Girls Bravo not to dive too deep into the series, because really, for one thing, the manga is fucking cute. The artist made it such an aesthetic. The anime, I mean, at the time it was made in the same era of 90s style, so if it got upgraded, it could be polished into something that has a bit more commentary and a bit more on the characters. It would be nice. But I mean, in this day and age, there's gonna be way too much backlash for the boobies. They would be latched and locked into place. They would not be bumbling about. We would miss out on so much. And I mean, we could talk about all these other animes. I mean, the very fact of I mentioned several animes in this list that have this strange notion that people wanted to watch incense. I can't get these two words right. It's not the lighting perfume thing. Incense, yes. But the whole taboo of step siblings, you don't know if that's your sibling, actual blood relatives, sacred blood relatives. Like, they have so many different types of this in anime and manga and manga as well, where the reader either knows that they're related or doesn't know, or is ambiguous to it and just continues with the story until maybe either right at the end they find out, or at the very start, or in the very middle of the story, where then you have to decide, am I really reading a love story that is forbidden? Because for the very fact there is some series that talk about the dark side of this, and some series that just make light pandering, haha, oh, it's your sister, she can totally hug and kiss you and stuff, that's fine, it's just affection, and other series where you're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing with your sibling? You're being super creepy and antisocial. Like, you need the Jesus cross, save yourself. But I mean, it all depends, because again, the whole thing of if you're a person who splits fiction from reality or can't split the two. And even people have had horrific trauma in real life about these kinds of situations. So again, this is something that is in a niche set that you don't really talk about in public unless people around you know you're in a safe space to either discuss about it or burn it. It goes either way. I myself, I'll read it, I'll watch it because I want to understand. One, is the story meant to be a warning? Is it meant to fetishize? Is it supposed to break the mold of some topics on love? Is it trying to disturb you, or if it's trying to give you a story that's beyond reality? Because again, this is not just an anime, this is not just in Japan. Many other countries, many other cultures talk about this. I mean, hell, you see all the different European countries with the whole bloodlines getting fucked up. And very much so, your cousin, da-ling, ding, 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 ding. It's nothing new. But it's the fact that some material is being either reused, recreated, or promoted in different ways. So just so you have that brief reminder that this is fiction, but if it's not for you, leave it alone, push it aside, you can kick it off the cliff and it will never come back to you. Other people may go and dive off that cliff to grab the things, but hey, It's for them, not for you. Okay? Oh my goodness. Other parts of the fan service. I mean, what was it? Fire Force was getting heated up about how they didn't need fan service in the series. I mean, obviously, I assumed, because I have not finished Fire Force, that most of the people who wanted fan service wanted to see more of the muscular women. That was the big thing. I didn't hear anyone being concerned about seeing panty shots, booty, bikinis, or anything else. They wanted to see women break thighs, break heads, have, peck bounces and all that. They were more interested in the strength of everyone, which I understand. Like, why can't we have animes with just that kind of service, where it's just, they dress up in a nice outfit, they flex a few of their muscles, maybe they sashay around, maybe they go ballroom dancing, maybe they go to the beach and enjoy the sun, maybe they wear a sundress, go to a wedding expo, who knows? There's other ways to have fan service. Which, I mean, I definitely know my dress-up darling was under fire for many different sorts of hate or love. For one, people were mad that the blend between innocence but still being pervy at the same time, characters having different outfits, and why people suddenly liked this blonde-haired character. There was the whole deal of a lot of panty shots and boob shots rather than just simply adoring one's face. But I mean, in the series itself, it does dive into those moments where there's simply an awe at something that they created. So it goes back and forth on human desires and human instincts, where they stop a moment and just look at the ocean and bask at it. And in another moment, they may catch sight of someone's undergarments and be like, ooh. But I mean, it works with someone's brain is going left, right, do. You're not gonna just be stuck in one single second of basking at the world. Things happen through and through. I mean, just to explain it in a rambly sort of way, it doesn't feel creepy because it's not real, and it doesn't feel creepy because there's an overarching plot that's going on that's not just centered on it being fan service. It's more about the clothes, about creation, about bringing more people together, about cosplay. That's a big thing that I get from the series. People are scared to come out of the metaphorical closet, to dress up, to try out a different outfit, to appreciate characters they've really grown to love or want to emulate their characteristics, or even just to show other people that they're part of the fandom. See, that's the thing. You have all these series where random booty shot, random skimpy beach scenes change the entire series, because then when you mention High School of the Dead, instead of, oh, the zombie apocalypse series, first thing that's usually mentioned is, oh, where they had the freaking titties do the freaking crazy physics where they flip between the bullets, or the MILF nurse. Like, those kind of things come up first, instead of the tragic nature of a childhood friend trying to save the girl he loves and having to kill the boyfriend. Or if you talk about Monster Musume, where they literally talk about, in different segments, about monster racism, prejudice, fear towards different beings, the political parties involved with this, and even just simply one dude who wants to be nice to everyone, and he doesn't have evil intentions. He doesn't go out of his way to be pervy. He's simply being himself. And yes, he's getting flocked with all the monster girls, but it just goes to show he's just generally a good, stable guy that appreciates a good pair of nice legs. He doesn't feel cheap, he feels just a good slate character you can emulate on yourself. Let's see, what else would be a prime target of the fan service that I can remember? I mean, if we want to go on the dark side of it, School Days did have quite a bit of fan service outside of when infidelity and cheating and all kinds of other nefarious things were going on, depending if your knowledge is visual novel or by the manga or the anime. Different people decide to be shitty people at different times, so remember, I'm talking from a full range of other people being bad. Like, honestly, that's the biggest thing of School Days. Making bad choices at a young age, and those choices, for the most part, lead to absolutely detrimental endings for people's lives. What else? Well, I mean, School Days, sure, they do have quite a bit of... You get to see their physique, you do see some panty shots, you get to have that awkward being pressed up against each other on the train, getting to see them in their bathing suits, but it doesn't really push that giddy silliness of panty shots and being gooberish, but it's more lust and desire and carnal rather than the oops, I tripped and now you see. So it can't really go into that side, because I'm still looking at the light-hearted bits that actually maybe get a giggle out of you or be like, oh my goodness, they really, really want to take a shot like this. I mean, One Piece, here and there you do receive fan service, though it's over the top in a way that it's so comedic that it doesn't feel like fan service. I don't know, I guess it's not a big part of the series that I even focus on. I mean, sure, you can see full-figured ladies and men and in-between and non-binary and fish people, non-fish people, mermaids, all kinds of things. But I guess maybe it just goes over my head. I'm not looking for that in the story, or it could just be for the fact of I'm crying most of the time in One Piece that I have no time to even be distracted by boobalins. Honestly, there is so many freaking times that I've had to just sob at the series, so I can't use it as a good describer of fan service since it throws me off my emotional stability too much. And I mean, Food Wars, it's just pretty obviously over the top. They're feeling themselves as they eat this cooked fried rice with eggs in it. They're seriously, it's very clear as you can see in front of your eyes or hear it if it was ASMR that they're trying to be a little naughty with pretty much keeping their clothes on. Trying to go through the list of what I've seen and what has changed. I mean, for the very fact of Naruto, Bleach, I already talked about One Piece and I just disregard it because I don't see the fan service in that way since it makes me too emotional to worry about that sense. Let's see, with Bleach, I mean, of course, Bleach definitely used, what was it? Rukia and Orihime, especially those two, and then the other high school friends that were in the background who came together. I mean, at the beginning when they had the high school segments, I would see a bit of that fan service, but again, it didn't really pop up too much where you felt like you were getting sneak peeks just for shits and giggles when a whole bunch of other stuff was burning in the background, was distracting me more, kind of thing. Let's see. I mean, of course, have to talk about the swimming and the battling animes that have come out. The free series, obviously, that's entirely fan service. I mean, you get to see shirtless men swim around and be athletic with each other. Big old fan service, of course, in that. And what was the other one that came out? I'm trying to remember. I literally just said something about sumo wrestler, but Keijo? The one where literally all female competition, they use their boobs or butt to knock each other out of the rink. I mean, clearly, big old fan service point of both fighting and you just get to see physics and action. But apparently, the story in, like, the competition itself got people going as well, so you went past just looking for it to be material and into curiosity of how the story was gonna play out. So, I mean, pretty much, if it's good fan service that I've seen, you get lost in the sauce of it. You find something else, like the whole meme of I was looking for copper and I found gold kind of thing, where you might be like, oh, there might be a scantily clad hot spring moment where suddenly they have an intimate conversation about their childhood past, and you're like, I am more enthralled by this than the body was doing. It's crazy how quickly good fan service, if it's put at the right timing and executed correctly, just give you those impulsive random thoughts that go through your head and then brings you back to the main focus of the story that's being conducted, the dialogue that's being presented, and you can proceed on without being bamboozled or distracted by it again. Like a fleeting thing that comes and goes, that you might have a costume or a maid outfit, and you're like, oh, I appreciate this, but I would like to see more of this content that is behind said smoke and mirrors. And I mean, we could talk about fan service, the scantily clad, the bordering on ecchi hentai stuff all day, because it's been going on for so long in different types. Sure, different series have broken some molds on it, they've changed it, they've made it more funny, or they go about it in different ways, but still, it is fictional 2D characters doing semi-cute or sexy, or even just downright nefarious things. Just depends on the context of the story. Other than that, we have, I talked about the beginning of where I started watching anime, and it was a mixture, honestly, between having One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, having Berserk, having Cowboy Bebop, having Sailor Moon, having Inuyasha, having Gentleman's Alliance, Full Moon, Slayers. Pretty much, I experienced not just shoujo, romance, slice of life, childish anime. I got to experience the grungy, the brutal, the magical adventures, the isekais, and the simple style of creating a story to evolve a plot. And even I was presented with manga well after elementary. It was slightly presented in middle school, but it was really at the end of middle school that I truly found an interest in these stories that were being presented visually. Because again, how I was brought up, a visual picture book, a storybook, a comic, still wasn't deemed literature or academic or providing you enough imagination to create the story around you. Which, sad to say, it pushed me to believe that fact, even though once I found Fruits Basket and Full Moon and Bleach and Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho, Rosario Vampire, and even Ouran High School Host Club. Just a plethora of different books that came into my possession. I mean, of course there's more, but those are main books that caught my attention that I picked up and I continued reading onwards. Of course, my list of mangas have evolved over the years. I've been ever increasingly involved with trying to find physical good copies of Red River, which is exponentially difficult since A, the series has been done for a long time, B, there is good copies but they're not from the official publisher as well, which is a do or die kind of thing. Like, hey, I want to give money to the creator, but it's so difficult to find reasonable book prices for 23, 25 manga to come to my location. And you're like, But thankfully, in the years have come, there has been now safer, more practical uses of online reading for manga that are less spam wasted with ads and potentially crashing and giving you viruses. So that is appreciated that I can see the story. But I mean, I'm at the heart of everything, a book collector. I love having those memories that truly some books give you, that you want to hold on to it because you want to relive that experience again when you open it once more. Maybe in due time I'll be able to collect it in person, but there's so many more stories that I did not realize that were out there. Thankfully, I didn't read the more dark or sensitive topics until now. Thankfully, my manga reading habits stayed relatively sane and healthy and happy and lovey-dovey and adventure and badass kickery. Because it was when doshingas were mentioned to me. That's where we spiraled out of control with suddenly finding what could be the edgiest piece of material I could lay my eyes upon, and then realizing before, fuck you, FAKKU, went to paid, they had a plethora of doshingas and mangas on that site that burn your eyes with bleach, honestly. Very fascinating stories and how they could create scenarios that no possible other human being could create. But yeah, we have that now in my storage bank if I really wanted to terrify someone with human pickling. Just to give you that small little tidbit, okay? Don't look it up, seriously. If you are faint of heart, you are sensitive, you are triggered, you are traumatized in any way, because I have been traumatized, I don't want to provide you with any more, so okay? Just as I talked about in the video games before of other games, tread lightly. Both that the internet and the world around you can give you so much wonder and joy, it could just go and scream in your eyes horrors unforeseeable. Yeah, just to put that out there, I've been given such a whirlwind experience with not just one type of story. But again, when I was younger, when I was in puberty, teen era, romance stories, of course, were adorable and sweet. But I didn't want just a normal story. I needed an adventure. I wanted to see fighting. I wanted to see drama and conflict happening. Like in Kodocha, you have a whole childhood trauma-based story with people growing up, with friendships developing, the acting world, and people who just are fixing themselves. Like, that, at the heart of it, is about finding yourself and growing up. Sure, there's romance in the story, but it gave you so much more, and it didn't have explosions and gunfire every left way. But then, you could turn around and go watch Bleach and see some epic sword fighting. You're like, yeah, see all that blood? There's no way people could bleed that much. Again, jumping around different worlds and stories because based on what you want to know about the plot, what you want to see that day. It changes. We're ever growing. I still hold these stories dear to heart. I mean, of course, big thing in anime and manga, things have not aged well for some stories. Some romances, some stereotypes, or how a relationship developed is very unhealthy or toxic or presented so many subliminal messaging that told people that they had to act a certain way to get true love. But again, these are fictional stories that are a story that defies the odds or twists and breaks your heart for first love. I mean, there's so many stories where they have freaking ghosts possessing someone and then re-dying. Like, in that self, shouldn't that be incredibly traumatizing? But the story just ends at that part. They don't continue onwards explaining why or how they're doing 5 years from now. It's wild. It's crazy. Or like the amount of vampire stories where nobody asks if they want their blood sucked or not. My goodness. They're just like, fresh. But of course, there's more stories that have that unfreshness about them that's a little like, ooh, this story was definitely written in a different time. Which, again, the different culture, the different time, what people would cling on to, what people assume was fair to write. Because what was it? Hot gimmick? Freaking a story that starts off with blackmail and what was it? Later down into the story, there was potentially sibling love that was then rejected, and then one of them went to become a monk or something. You're like, whoa, this just escalated. Or freaking Nana with relationship abuse. Oh, and cheating too, of course. That happens very early on to the story. I mean, it's fun, especially when you get to look at it at a timeline for when the story first got created. For one, how much the visuals change in it. My goodness. Have you seen how Shugachara or Fruits Basket has changed over the years? How the style of art that they worked with at the beginning morphed as both the artists refined the work, and even the characters in the story changed over the subsequent amount of time in the story, depending if it was time skips, or they grew up from childhood to adulthood, or they died, or they were reborn, yada yada. There's many ways that you can both appreciate the work in now modern times, and to look back at it and remember how you felt then. You don't have to reflect those actions in real life, but if anything, it can be your comfort item that brought you solace and peace at a time. It gave you the butterfly feelings that you once got to experience with first crushes and loves, or it can be the thing that mends you from a heartbreak. It could be the one story that holds you down when you need stability or you need a little bit of chaos to look at and realize you're doing better. It's wild. I mean, yes, this jumps away from manga, but I mean, it jumps into the world of light novels because Oh my god, how am I forgetting its name? With the green pendant, blonde hair, the mailing service, the robot mechanical arms. Violet Evergarden, right? Okay, so Violet Evergarden. I started to read and watch this anime right in the middle of me having, honestly, a crisis of existence. So, having a story where literally the character's starting out with essentially being a stone, obviously traumatized, but doesn't actually understand how to process emotions outside of leaving her war zone, which is a literal war zone, but still, take the metaphor of she was in a dangerous situation that nearly killed her, and now in a place where she's in stability with order and calm and support, and now having to navigate being human again is wild. I needed this story, and especially having that hyper focus to be damned to find how to read this in an English version, because the visual novel is written differently than how the anime script goes, which is crazy because the visual novel, well, not visual novel, the light novel throws the most impactful moment at the start rather than in the middle of the story. But again, it would catch the reader's eye faster that way compared to how the anime did it. So again, how your media works, you have to change it. And to bring it back to what I'm talking about, these different works that may have problematic storytelling, problematic plot points, bad characters, or flawed ones, everyone has a different reason for suddenly connecting with a story or loving it or caring about it or hyper-focusing on it, because it comes into their life maybe when they truly need it, or that they come back to it and realize it speaks to them. And honestly, Violet Evergarden helped me with my crisis of existence. It gave me, crazy enough, it really did give me a reason to continue. Like, I know it sounds bonkers to say anime, light novels, all this entertainment stuff were keeping me going, but at the dark points that I was at, honestly, I was putting hope into a video game coming out to just hang on into life. Like, okay, things were shit-tastic at some points. So, being able to come back into anime again and enjoy it just on my own time is magical and freeing. And that's really the biggest part of why I wanted to do a podcast, because it lets me comprehend my own thoughts, my own feelings that I'm fleeting through or reminiscing on. I had a long time where anime couldn't be at the forefront of my life, and it did hurt me. I got swarmed into having school, having a job, having to be the main provider of my household, and really having any kind of entertainment that was from my childhood come back to me gave me the solace and sanctuary that I needed to continue. And now, it's not, I don't want to say it's everything, but it holds such a dear point in my heart that if it was gone again, I would need to reorganize my life entirely. Yeah, we're just gonna slam you with some emotion, like One Piece does. But I love it. Something for me to think about afterwards when I write about this podcast and what I've spoke about as well. I mean, where else could I go with an episode that I'm talking widely about anime? I mean, the future of anime, the past of anime, adaptations. I mean, we could go there. We could talk about live action movies and the very abysmal track record live adaptations have. Has there been a good live action movie of an anime? That is something I need to wonder for a moment. Give me a second. Okay, for the ones I have watched, because just spacey brain me, I do know the what was it? Rurouni Kenshin. Yes, Rurouni Kenshin that I recently saw that's available through Netflix was actually ridiculously good. I mean, of course, if you watch it in Japanese or if you watch it with the dub, depending on your preference, it might feel cheesy. But legitimately, how the action scenes are, how the style of dress, how the scenery's set, how they follow the plot, legitimately felt good, like a good representation, not bashing it and not making it feel cliche. But again, Kenshin is a bit more reasonable to make in live action since most of these sword scenes and such are in human form pretty much compared to like Dragon Ball Z live action. Like it's a whole movie with space people and Kamehameha, which I mean, depending on who's producing stuff, could make it look shoddy. But Kenshin looked great. I felt enthralled by the story, and it was exciting, so I give that one a hell yeah. I don't even know what my rating would be, but I actually sat there and watched the entire thing, so that's impressive for my attention span. And even, I really have just adored Rurouni Kenshin when I watched it as an anime. So, I felt the story unfolding with its own type of way, but still respecting the main canonical material. Now, on the flip side, we've got the many interpretations of Death Note. Which, I mean, if you've perused TikTok and YouTube, you've definitely seen some people regret their decision about watching any of the Death Note movies, both in the live action that they decided to produce through Netflix, and the one that they produce for the theaters. Now, they pick good actors. I can't lie, just the basis of the actors, they did well. They tried to fit them to the character. Now, how the story unfolded, you get some weird shenanigans going on that didn't make sense for the nitty-gritty crime cat and mouse sense of it. That's something that got lost in the live action version. You didn't feel like you were watching the villain become more and more corrupt. You just felt like in the live action they made it seem like this whiny, edgy teenager just being crazy and not just being a viewing of a psychological crime drama happening. That's one frustrating bit. How anime can have these ridiculous, I eat the potato chip scene, but then continue on the story and still have that sense of danger, while the live action, it kind of fizzled out as you watch it, because they just put too much emphasis on weird shit in the background. Like, this is me, personally, after I watched Death Note in the movie theater on the one night it was showing. Like, I paid good money to see this, and I felt smacked in the face. And then, when the Netflix one came out, I was even more confused, because for one, they decided to make light the byproduct of a hippy-dippy culture of America, so then already they have crazy school shooters in America, and they want to decide to make crazy white boy do these crazy things instead of keep it in the Japanese culture. So it's just frustrating. They thought they could rip the story, and they didn't make it any better. They made it shittier even, just to say. Sure, Ryuk, the design, I have to say, Ryuk alone was pretty cool to see. And I do like their interpretation of L. Now, his style of detecting and being deductive and using his brain, not so much. His design aesthetic, love it. How he used his brain was somebody trying to do fan fiction, honestly. But still, these are stories that had been told like for a while now. 2015, 2017. I forget when Netflix came out with their Death Note. But still, they're done and have been retold and retold. And even Death Note has already played through what it can express at this point, unless they take it a different adaptation or if they put a new spin to it. Because as well, Death Note does have Platinum End out, so that could be potential live action material, but we, as a whole of the world, maybe we have to stay away from such dark material that plays into God complex and do something else. Sure, they could come back to it in a different form in a few more years. So, Death Note, obviously it was its own edgy niche that became very popular and had very gothic aesthetics, how to talk about how police work, cat and mouse, rooting for the villain rather than the hero. But then, another one that kind of goes into the same realm would be Parasite, that had a live adaptation. Which, to the scenes I actually remember, it still kept some of the core ideas, like what truly it means to be human, what it means to be alien, emotions, protective, and even what you're willing to do to save those around you, and how far you could erode yourself. But Parasite it just felt better as an anime because it was such a concept of body horror, essentially. So having it in live action would creep out someone who has any of that uncanny valley thing. So it's probably best to stay away from live action with that kind of thing. But it'd be truly interesting to see people animate that. But that's just my preference. I cared more for the series when it was in anime form. Live action, it just made me feel uncomfortable, essentially. Let's see. I mean, yeah, I touched upon Dragon Ball, but it kind of goes into the same place as Avatar. Not the Blue Alien Avatar, but Avatar, The Last Airbenders, live action. And then the other talks that they had about reintroducing live action Avatar. And you're like, I don't know. Because it was just weird they wanted to specifically age up characters for the fact they wanted to put romantic tension, which was not at the forefront of the plot. Like, more save the Earth was the plot, okay? Now, the last live adaptation I can actually remember inside my skull at the moment is Alita, the Battle Angel movie, which surprisingly has not been that long since it released. It just feels like a long time has passed. Maybe because since I was expecting a sequel to happen by now, but again, it's a live-action animation movie that had quite a bit in the workings. Now, I know a lot of people were very confused when they first saw Alita if they did not previously had information about the source material. Because the whole fact of the main character being their face animified, like anime style. They're literally big head, big eyes, and everything compared to all the rest of the characters, which looked quote-unquote human. Which I know people's perspective of live action and using anime style people instead of the real people, there's always going to be a push and pull on the debate. But in this movie, when I watched it and understood where the material originated from, it made sense why the character was presented in this way. It felt more loyal to the plot, more aesthetically like the manga itself. And, I was pretty hyped up on the battle scenes in the movie, but the thing is, how the movie progressed the story, it cut you off on a very important point of the story that should have continued, or at least had a sequel in the mix already, so you could have kept the hype going. Because, sure, you get the big world building, the premise, the upgrades to the character, but then when the worst thing happens in the movie, that emotionally investment, and someone is taken away from the story, and an epic battle's about to begin, the story ends. In a way, that's a good thing and a bad thing. Just like how some animes only do 12 episodes and then they're done. It's kind of a way that the story wants to push you to go back to the source material and read it from there. Yes, not everyone enjoys doing that, but personally, it's a good way to open the door for people to take a chance and go find the manga and read it, compared to watching it in a movie. Because it's going to be set up differently, how the tension is rising, and even your own imagination to put music and sounds and voices added to it. So, again, push-pull, some people love it or hate it. I personally, very ecstatic when it came out. I was thrilled. I know it's the whole cliffhanger bit, you're like, how could you end the movie with this? I need more! But then you're satiated when you just go, let me look up the manga, boop, 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 and then you can continue the plot from there. But as a whole, for the live actions I've actually watched and what I've heard about, it is getting better with due time. Yes, depending on your idea of what a story and what movies should do for when they're adapting source material compared to when they're just creating their own movie. Again, it's the whole thing of how people prefer their books when they're adapted. It just goes the same way with manga and manhwa. People have certain ideas of what should stay and what shouldn't be adapted. When you have epic hero battles that defy laws of physics and what normal human living creatures or animals look like, or if they talk or don't talk, or how they sound, or who or shouldn't play these characters, there's truly never going to be a full win or lose, because some people will be mad, some people will be mad, some will question it, and sometimes you'll just get annoyed when it becomes a cash grab as well. But compared to 10 years ago and 20 years ago, take for instance now Super Mario Bros., where we had the old school movie come out, and frankly, it is very different. For one, the live action for Super Mario Bros., I really enjoyed. That was one I just randomly picked up about a week ago, and I like the weirdness and different style they took for the movie that doesn't represent directly the video game. Because for one, they explain that there is a reptile population of subhumans that live in an entirely different parallel universe, with the fungus literally being a human growing thing. Now, there is a complication because live action movies do have to condense storylines into a entertainment product that can be done in less than 3 hours. Sure, you can have sequels and trilogies and anthologies, but they take a lot of time to put together. Now, it is a nice offering to have on the side, such as Violet Evergarden that I mentioned before had a TV series that accompanied the light novels that came out. But to finish off the episode, the TV series that they made for the anime, they finished it with a movie, which is done in animation, not live action. But just the very fact that they put together the last part of the story into a movie portion gave it kind of like the whole wrapping the present with a bow, making it all complete in the end. Which I do like, because since the first half of the story is broken up to segments, since it's building blocks to what leads up to the final part of maybe closure, growing up, moving away from her past, exploring a true spectrum of all the emotions she could feel. Yes, the movie, for some, don't like or do like, give or take on your interpretation of the story between the relationship she has. It sets off the whole story into a way that you could exclude it or you can include it in your experience. Because how the anime ends could still finish it off perfectly. It just depends on how much lore, how much backstory you want to experience with that entertainment. And of course there is a second movie they made, which is a nice adaptation to expand upon just more story and something else that can happen in the world that they've designed. Plus, it does give you a bit of that fanfiction-esque, putting Violet into a tension romance a bit, but even could be platonic friendship. It can go either way. It just depends on which lens you want to perceive it through. But as such, it is nice when a live action could have a movie or be set up as a TV series, and having one or the other medias set up to either finish or start the story. Because sometimes you need a big time frame to condense a lot of world building, action or adventure, or a setup to a epic journey that continues. And it just depends. Some material they can cut it down, other things you need to work towards that climactic finish. Like Lord of the Rings. Yes, it was broken up into parts, but because there's so much going on in the story, it had to be split up in movie form. It could have been done in episodes, but they would have been trapped in the studio for years to just finish up the epic battles, which sometimes you want one epic battle and be done. Episodes, you could have several battles of different types from different perspectives. And this does go off on a bit of a tangent on just movie production and episodes, but just something to think about in the future for live action animes. How they can be produced, the different styles they can be done, such as having audio or visuals or episodes instead of a full-length movie. Testing it out, that way when they go make a full-fledged production, they know there's a hype behind it and they know people like the direction they took it. Because it sucks going to the theater expecting Death Note to be epic, and then you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? And again, it's entirely gonna be debate for life. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about live action. I mean, I could sit here and just be like, oh, well, if only they did this scene like that, and blah, blah, blah. But again, am I a film and theater major? No. I am just a cinematic appreciator. And of course, I mean, a good way to wrap this up is essentially, I mean, I talked a little bit of how anime has influenced or affected my life, or changed my perspectives, or have made me feel an array of emotions, or has influenced my hobbies or my friendships, or, as I spoke in the very beginning, potentially about how anime was not seen in such a good light before, and now it's transformed into a more mainstream, accepted hobby or passion to have. Me? We could go first and foremost. I actually cut my hair one time because I wanted to look like Moroku from Inuyasha. For some reason, I wanted to embody the perverted monk with wind tunnel for his hand. I cannot still figure out why I wanted to be him. I don't know. I have many theories of why I suddenly thought me with curly hair wanted to look like anime basic cowlick hairstyle. Because if you've ever seen Moroku, he has not a wild hairstyle. It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh hair. But still, you would need gel and certain like straighteners to get his hairstyle. And it's not really an elaborate one, but I cannot understand my hyperfixation for a good pretty much past season 3, season 4 of Inuyasha. So I was in middle school still, so not quite high school age when I decided to do this botched haircut, which then first and foremost looked like I decided to cut my hair at 3 in the morning. It did not look good for curly hair suddenly having one part super short and the other part shoulder length. And then it became summer, and sweaty bangs just coiled into themselves even more. I mean, the best way to describe it, I was looking like a off-brand from Queen. The guitarist, Brian May. Just a flock of poofy hair, but the bangs were too short, so it's just like, you see my forehead. What am I doing? Oh gosh. Thankfully, I had really cool sunglasses that took up most of my space in my head, so at least matched. But still, I look back at those pictures and I'm like, good gosh, I was just chopping my hair for no reason, thinking, oh yeah, I look like Moroku now. Like, no you don't! Get a straightener at least, child! Ugh! But yeah, that's one of the many influences anime suddenly inflicted me as a child, where I'm like, I want to embody this character. And instead of thinking, get a wig, I just thought, I could cut my hair, it would magically look like them. Because literally, there was a time I was wearing those fingerless gloves, but only on the left hand. I wrapped it with some beads. I was trying to wear purple and black a lot to fit the aesthetic. Even I was trying to get, my voice deeper for some reason, which was just bonkers. Like, I didn't want to embody Kagome, I didn't want to embody Kagura, I didn't want to embody Sango. For some reason, maybe it's because Moroku made me laugh a bunch and I just love that feeling. It honestly could just be that to giggle and laugh and just have a good time. Bonkers to think about that kind of idea that's the reason why I cared so much. Who knows? We'll explore that thought a bit more. Let's see, elsewise, anime did influence me to pick up certain video games, especially because of the anime aesthetic. A lot of games that were produced either in Japan, by other Asian countries, that gave that round face, big eyes in their games, like the Tales series, Trail of Cold Steel, Trails of the Sky, Rune Factory, Harvest Moon, any otome games, because definitely anime and visual novels were those gateways into playing JRPGs and giving farming games a chance. Because this all coincided pretty much back to back. My love of Harvest Moon came through at the end of elementary, exploring more edgy, dark, or more quest-based anime came into middle school age as well. So all this combines with each other of what affected what I enjoyed writing about, what I wanted to read, and of course, in this era that is now 10, 15 years ago, affected which group of friends I made in life. Because quite literally, I'll let you know, I made a plan of action to talk to someone without talking to them by simply pulling out a manga near them at the start of class so they would ask me about it, okay? That I am this level of introvert, lazy, shy, and strategic planner that I was willing to take a guess that this other person liked anime or manga like me. But I didn't know them yet. It was at the start of the school year, so simply come in the next day, kind of make that click-click sound on the table as I pull out my manga to read a few pages before we start class. And it worked. They turned to me and like, oh, do you like this anime too? I was like, why, yes. My diabolical plan worked to make friendships happen. And that is something I did at the start of moving to an entirely new school, an entirely new state. So I get it. I was really trying to up the ante of who likes what I like. I would like to make friends, please. And, that was a good friendship. I remember we watched several different anime series together. We got to talk about our favorite series at the time. And it opened up a lot of other friendships for me. But the other friendships I made from that love of anime and manga and games continued because we could talk about ongoing series or ones we never heard about. But it was never the main interest of our activities. Mainly was going outside and having wild shenanigan, hyper fun time. Because being able to sit down and watch a series together was an endeavor, because we had several people in our full group. So mostly it was done on our own time, and we would come back together once we've either finished or caught up or took a few hours just to read something, and then we would bring it to the whole group. I don't remember mostly if we were appreciative of the music. I know currently I enjoy the music being produced in anime significantly. Maybe I did when I was younger, but mostly the visual aspect and the level of how much could things go from 0 to 100. The whole thing of edginess or surprises. But still, it really was the main forefront of how I made friends. Of course, I made friends when I went into lacrosse, but pretty much none of them had the same interests as I did with Japanese anime, animation, manga kind of stuff. But we'd still have fun, and I still was able to connect or have other interests outside of it. So I didn't become a closeted otaku. I could still talk about it, but it was mainly for one specific group of friends I would have a full-blown conversation about it. How else has it affected? I mean, of course, as it currently stands, it is affecting how I want to integrate the use and the application of anime into counseling. How I can use it to assist or make a network of people who relate to it or find it understands where they come from, or it gives them good feelings. Such as if I could find someone else who takes the messages from Violet Evergarden in the same way I did, and that it helps them, would be magical to have that level of connection or a bond, and have someone else being able to see it through the same lens as me. I mean, I don't know if I've already mentioned this. I probably did at some point about like Ghost in the Shell, because again, technology is ever changing, it is ever growing. It's not going away, it's going to continue. It's just like how a lot of people are becoming concerned that psychology, counseling, human-to-human interactions to assess and diagnose and treat and to alleviate someone's different goals or obstacles. A lot of people are concerned like ChatGPT and AI or other forms of online non-human forms are going to take over this position, which some parts may become more heavily relied on it, but I can't see it erasing the entire field. Because, I mean, the whole thing of, like, the McDonald's non-person serving thing, those still break down. They don't work all the time, and they do take quite a bit of work and effort to put them into play compared to having a person ordering. So again, just like in many other fields, technology is not going to pull away the person quite yet. It's going to take a whole lot of other manpower to even create a foolproof plan. So, I mean, it is a little random little bit I throw into there, but it's the whole thing of technology and the world of the future. But back to how anime and my influences, because we just try to wrangle that conversation away. Get back here. Of course, my choices of music are, well, I mean, most of my music is very all over the place because I have different moods and themes and a overall soundboard I want to have for day to day. Of course, there's some tracks that are just openings and ending songs for a lot of animes, which bring me back to a warm feeling that I can continue my day with. And then I can go to the next playlist and it's just death metal. And it's not anything included in anime, but still, it works with what I need in my brain. I mean, food-wise, anime has me very envious. Oh my goodness. I mean, the whole fact of Food Wars does make you seem like, damn, I want what she's having. Or Ghibli movies make food seem very squishy, almost fluid-like. And of course, my goodness, the amount of anime and manga that have this illustrious creation between French pastries and infusing it into Japanese food. Oh goodness, the fluffy pancakes, the chocolate, the different pastries, oh, the little strawberries, the whipped cream, the inventive little ideas that are out there. And I mean, more and more of it's coming out of Japan now, so you're able to find this stuff, but still, the true fun masterpieces are still over there that I need to take a trip there. I'm dying to go there and have a full-blown, if possible, a month-long adventure in Japan. That would be so thrilling to do. Because I'm sure a week would be more reasonable based upon cost, but somebody can dream. I can dream about taking a month-long vacation to Japan, the hot springs, seeing all the architecture, how going on the trains. I mean, yes, the reality of being squished inside a hot metal tube is not that thrilling, but still, the adventure of travel. And see, it does influence me, the fact of Japan still has this magical element to it that would both intrigue me as a person who likes to see all their cultures, but another part is the sweaty, creepy otaku kid who wants to go see Japan and see all the weeaboo stuff. I mean, not gonna lie, I would definitely like to go over there and see the merch, see the different shows, the different costumes, go to Akihabara, just be able to experience it firsthand rather than through videos. But of course, you would be able to get to hear how many different other languages being spoken, the ocean view, and even the possibility of going on a boat, traveling around, from countryside to the city, being able to see places that are rural and isolated, deserted even, the haunted areas. I mean, if you've seen Abroad in Japan, Gigok, Anime Man, Sea Dog VA, they've definitely shown quite a bit of an illustrious world that both bashes and praises and gives a neutral take on it. Because again, there's a lot of other YouTubers and influencers and YouTubers, Twitchers, who talk about it in different perspectives. Because, I mean, I'm talking specifically about Japan, but I mean, the other dream is going to Finland, which has quite a bit of a population of hypers for anime as well. Because, I mean, going to an international convention would be dope as hell. All the objectives I would like to do with my life. But, first and foremost, I will continue living vicariously through watching anime, seeing how they draw the world around them, and all the little hobbies I can pick up. And of course, picking up more Japanese lessons so I'm competent to talk. Like, that's a big thing. As much as I've loved all of this anime world and wanting to experience Japanese culture, having a full-blown conversation in the language is still a struggle, which is wild for how much I've sat there and let it consume my life, and I'm still an amateur linguistic speaker. But hey, I've been a little underproductive in that field, which, okay, fair, as we have different things we will fix our eye on, and what I see as an easy goal to attain compared to, if I can read 50 volumes of this series, I could have spent that time practicing Japanese. I have some of the writing skills down. Like, I'm able to play some of the video games in Japanese. So, slowly but surely, I am upgrading my level. But I'm just not acquiring enough XP to advance to the next level. Let's see. All this wonder and all of the things that have influenced my life. I don't know. Like, honestly, would I have taken a different path if I was less involved, obsessed, or fixated on anime and video games? I mean, a big thing. Maybe I would have been much more athletically inclined or motivated if I didn't have so many indoor hobbies. I mean, that's a big thing to remember. A lot of my childhood and adulthood have been accompanied with skiing, hiking, walking, playing hockey, playing lacrosse, doing just a lot of activities because, I mean, we've always had pets, so I'm always having to run and play with dogs. I mean, who knows? I mean, honestly, maybe I would have taken a path for the Air Force or military if I was a little less terrified by the potential of death. Because, I mean, being female, you never know when you're gonna meet a crazy person in the military who just wants your body to disappear. Like, honestly, that's a scary thing. That if I was less self-aware of the horrors that could happen, I could have just poof. Because, I mean, that is something in the anime world that I discovered as well. The dark side of it, of like, oh, people have either a kink or a fetish or something that is on a negative side or a dark side. And so long as it's not done in reality, okay. But the fact that then there was a lot of stories that were trying to be played out in reality made me, like, realize very early in life, like, well, there's actually bad people in the world. Because, I mean, this is something I learned exploring the internet way too early, okay? I'm not gonna go into details, but just understand the realms of what I speak of. Darkness. Oh my goodness. Try to stay away from the dark subject matter, but it still trailed in. But honestly, for this to be the third episode, it goes back and forth on some more troubling facts, a little bit more general, and even contemplating some things that are rattling my brain. And you know what? For episode 4, we should probably go into a little bit more about healing. How we can take different stories and how we can apply it to what worked, what didn't work, what started the healing process. Like, we could talk about Clannad. That's a huge one to talk about that can both be a story of healing or a story that shows what could have happened. Because, I mean, you can reflect it from the main character's point of view, the future, the past. Oh boy. Parental figures, neglect. Okay, we got some ideas what to work with next. I'm pumped. And of course, I really would like to figure out this month specifically some more time management on some of the other objectives I would like to reach. Because since I decided to pick up this podcast, work on some literature, and even general deep cleaning in my life, I've dropped streaming for a bit, in both the form of recorded and live streaming. But mainly that's because of certain particulars I have about noise, sound control, and just general distractions. But hey, at least I'm aware of it, and I know what I need to do to delete the obstacles. But here we will depart from XP for Heal, episode 3. And I hope you've all had a good day, a good night, a good afternoon, or a good 3 a.m. midnight degent hours. And I think I'm gonna go and play with the dogs for a bit. Get some sunlight. Enjoy it. Radiate. But goodbye, and have more XP to save the day. Or get a nice nap in. Bye-bye.